Welcome to the BriteVibe podcast. At BriteVibe, we believe everyone deserves to be happy. But in today's world, everywhere you turn, there is division and negativity. At BriteVibe, we have created a global movement to bring 8 million people together who are inspired to live bright, live bold, and share bright vibes. Alone, it can be hard to change, but together we can change the world. Welcome to the BriteVibe podcast. Jayne Warrilow, welcome to the show today. So happy to have you on.
Oh, Matt, thank you. I'm really excited for our conversation.
I am as well. Just from the pre-show, you've got good energy, you've got high energy, and you've got a great, super relevant for me, and I think for all of our listeners, super relevant topic and topics that we're going to be talking about today. But I really wanted to get in. I love your backstory, or not your backstory. That sounds like, I don't even know what that sounds like. That sounds like it's made up. But but I love your actual story, at least what you put out on the internet. Gosh knows if that's true or not. I'll ask you today and we'll see. But first of all, is that a Texas accent? Because I don't think it is. Where are you?
Absolutely not. No. No. So everything's bigger in Texas, isn't it? Well, I'm from this little small kind of country island called England. Yeah. So I'm from the United Kingdom.
Oh, is that right? Well, but do you live in the States or do you live in England? Okay.
No, right. I live in currently in Columbus, Ohio, having gone via Florida and California on the way here.
Okay. I just always think the accents of people that not from the States are just so, I'll say it the way I feel it, cute. They're just so darn cute. It's just like, it's just like when I travel to other, countries, I'm sure they're like, oh, that American accent, right? They think it's cute. It's like, so anyway, I always love talking to people with accents, and I have had several people on my show from the UK in the last month. So I really like visiting. They're very pleasant people. I love them. But let's talk about how we're going to get into some, even though I'm being lighthearted right now, we're going to get into some deeper stuff today because you've gone into some deeper spaces. So you've been in business. You're a business coach now. You're the founder of JW International. That's what is that accurate?
Yeah, and that's right.
And so you coach CEOs, you coach senior executive teams, you're in the business space, but you also bring this whole other component, which I think is super critical. And I think it's becoming more and more relevant in business. And without giving it away, I'll let you walk into what that other piece is. But kind of, let's start wherever you would like. Would you like to start from birth, or would you like to fast forward to when you were a teenager? Where would you like to start in with your story?
Oh my gosh, I think birth's a bit early. Let's say that. So yeah, because we haven't got all day, have we? Well, I do have the capacity to just kind of chat, So yes. Let's start with my career, really. Okay. And when I started my career, I did a background. So my first degree was in psychology, and I was fascinated by. So this sounds kind of weird, but I was fascinated by healing and how we had come to get, right, the medical profession that we have today, the orthodox medical profession. So that's what I did my dissertation on. And I'm telling you that because it sounds a bit left field, but it'll all come together when you start to realize why I'm doing the work that I'm doing today. So coming out of that, I knew that I wanted to be a leader. So I went into retail at first and management, and then got into management consulting, started to work globally as a management consultant, but was working very much in the leadership and the kind of occupational psychology and organizational space, and then did my master's degree in leadership and organizational systems and development, and so kind of got this systemic approach layered on. And I worked for one of the universities in England at the time, when it was back in the kind of mid-90s, when the government funding for universities was diminishing in the UK. So at that time, I was very lucky. All of my education was free, and that was starting to change. And so universities were looking for different ways to bring in income. And I was hired as a CEO, and really without the university knowing much about what they were doing, to set up a leadership consulting company for the university.
Interesting.
And so this was how I got started. And one thing led to another. And then I ended up, like, we grew so fast. We were like multi-million-dollar, like within 18 months.
Oh, wow.
And we just grew so quickly. And I had this different perspective to what the academics in the university had. They wanted me to recruit all their lecturers and use them in organizational life. But having been a consultant and working in organizational life, I realized that the practical realities and the intellectual reality of the academic didn't really meet so well. So
really?
it was.
I've never heard that. I've never heard that those that can do and those that can't teach. Right?
Teach.
I mean, I think
That's right.
Right.
That's right. And so that was my first challenge in a way. And so I brought a very different kind of energy, I think, to the work that I did. And we grew really rapidly and had some amazing results for our clients. Then in 1997, so I am going to get personal here. My first husband left me with I'd got a 5-year-old and a 6-week-old baby. And during that marriage, I've been trying to start my own business, but for one reason or another, it was never the right time. And he didn't really support me in that. So when he left and I had this 6-week-old baby and a 5-year-old, even going back to my role as a CEO of this consulting company for the university, I couldn't make ends meet, because back then I couldn't make the father pay anything, even though I took him to court a number of times. And so I was in this place where it was survival. So I started my own business. Now, here's what happened. I had golden handcuffs. Which meant that, so in the UK, what it means is you can't work within a 200-mile radius of where the university was, non-compete.
Yeah, we call it the same thing here. We call it, but I've heard golden handcuffs a lot. But yes, you had to sign a non-compete. Yeah. Right.
I did. And so what I had to do was that flung me, I was in quite a rural part of England, and it flung me out of my comfort zone into London and the greater London area. And so I then suddenly started working with bigger brands, all on my own, and started working pan-European very quickly, and then into the global space. And I was one of the first women in that global space. And that was a bit like a trial by fire, because suddenly I had to learn how to work cross-culturally, had to understand that different perspectives were in global teams now, and then what did that mean for leadership? So doing a lot of research and studying and really unpacking that along the way. But that business was incredibly successful. And it was a little bit, if I'm honest, Matt, it was a little like riding a wild elephant through the jungle. I was kind of going wherever it wanted to go, and I was hanging on for dear life, nearly burnt out. But then I met my second husband. We got married. I had a child because he didn't have any children. So we had another child. And during that birth, I suffered a massive medical injury that went undiagnosed for 11 months. When I finally collapsed in front of in a boardroom doing a presentation, I collapsed and was taken to Imperial College London and finally got my diagnosis. But what it meant was I had 4 years bedridden on opiate medication, lots of surgeries, nothing
4
worked.
years?
Yeah, spinal cord, kidney, and bladders. I had to sell my consulting company, which was everything you'd expect from a consulting company. It was leadership development, a lot of OD work as well, but a lot of culture change processes. We were doing really well, but I sold that because I was just about my own healing now. I had to kind of come back to life. And in 2004, I was given a terminal diagnosis.
Oh my.
Now,
terminal diagnosis.
Terminal. That I by a horrible doctor who told me to go home and make the most of the time I had left with my children. Those were her exact words. And she was horrible. She had no passion, nothing. And I sometimes wonder what I would have done if she'd have been nice, because it may be that I wouldn't have been here. But I kind of fell to pieces, and then I had to get off the morphine and everything. And so I started to put together a team around me of alternative healers and unorthodox medicine, including a Chinese doctor. And what happened then was I started to come back to life. But I want everybody to know this was not a path of certainty. I had no idea I was going to get back to life in the way that I am today. And I'm still managing the conditions. I'm not healed, but you wouldn't know it the way I'm off all medication. And what that did for me was coming back out of that, I realized, so I got a call from an ex-client as I was coming back to life and thinking, okay, I can start work again. And this client was actually Bucola in Hammersmith in London. It was an ex-client of mine. And he called me and he said, Jayne, I need you. Like, you need to come down. So I came back, I went to London. My husband drove me, because what my client didn't know was everything I'd been through. So, and as
can I pause, because you're in a role here, and I'm like, I want to make sure that I'm capturing it, but I want to make sure everybody else is capturing this too. So you sold your company 2004-ish, is that accurate?
Actually, 2002, I sold
2002. It, okay, so you sold your company in 2002. That's when you're told that you're terminal, is 2002. Okay. Yeah. And then for 4 years, you're or you are bedridden on opiates. Is this accurate?
Yes, that's okay. With carers, 24-hour carers. That's how ill I was.
Oh, okay. So you've got staff coming into you've got nurses and nurse aides and all that coming into your home, I'm assuming.
Yes.
To take care of you 24/7, and you're bedridden. You're an invalid at this point. Is that accurate?
Yep.
That's wow. And I thought that was, but I wanted to make sure that
I was dying.
You were told that you were dying, and you were kind of in that. Wow, 4 years. That, I mean, you went so fast over it. It was like, and I was like, I'm like 4 years, right?
And actually, because you put me back here, let me tell you a story.
Okay. Oh,
right?
see, I knew I was supposed to bring you back.
Yeah.
This is why they pay me the big bucks, Jayne. This is why, right here.
Right. I remember being in hospital, and I was in and out of hospital all the time with different surgeries, and nothing was working. And we'd got to a point where the medical team thought that they had to remove my bladder and put a modulator in my spine. Now I'm lying in this hospital bed, and I'm always cold when I'm in hospital, because they don't have duvets. Right. It's always freezing. Right. So I'm lying in this hospital bed. I'm semi-conscious. I can hear my husband talking to the medical team slightly outside the door. I can't hear what they're saying, but I have this like almost like a spiritual experience. I'm in the bed, and the window is behind me, and I can feel the afternoon sun coming on my legs, and the heat of that sun. And in that moment, I knew that I knew that I was a body of light. My cells had light in them, and the light was dimming. And I knew I had a choice. And the choice was, do you want to live or not? Like, are you going to go with the light and the life, or are you just going to let go and kind of allow this process of dying to happen? What is it for you? And I knew this, right? And here's the horrific thing that I realized in that moment. It wasn't enough for me to live my life for me. Right. That wasn't enough. The pain was overwhelming. Right. I just was like, oh, like I just just flick the switch off. I'm ready to go. Then I had this visceral reality of somebody telling my kids that their mother had died, and my kids having to grow up without their mom. Right. And that for me was the only reason I decided to choose life. But here's what I know today we're 20, my son now, the birth causes, he's 21 now. So 21 years ago, this happened to me. And over those years, I've realized that this is a decision we make every single day if we're awake and aware. Like, am I going to choose life today, or am I going to choose to just go along in the habitual patterns of everything that we do unconsciously? And every day now I choose life. Because so far anyway.
Well, and I'm so glad that I was prompted to stop and rewind that story, because I think because it's gives so much greater depth to why you survived, right? I mean, whether it's your kids, it's your family, it's other people, but life is freaking hard sometimes. I mean, like really freaking hard. And if you don't have that anchor point, I think to your point, you either just kind of submit to and then you're just preparing every day for death, right? Even if it takes 50 years. Or you choose the alternate and say, no, I'm going to do something different. I think you have to be living life for something bigger or greater or more purposeful than yourself, or it's just not really worth living, I guess. And I think your story so accentuated, and that's when I was, so anyway. Now the lighter side of that is, have you like when you need your son to do something, do you just say, do you know what the hell you put me through? Do you understand? do you just lean in a little on that story and you're like, do you realize what I've done for you, son, to have you? So I need you to mow the lawn today, right? Yeah, you're like, you're going to mow that lawn. Yeah. Your mom almost died. I was in bed for 4 years because of you. Sorry.
Well, that's one perspective, isn't it? But the other perspective,
not a good perspective. It's not a good perspective, Jayne. I was just throwing
it's true. No. When he was 14 and he wasn't unloading the dishwasher, absolutely, yes.
Yes. Okay.
Now he's 21. Now he's 21.
You don't want to guilt him, right?
It's a little bit different, yeah. But the other side of this is, and this is honestly my true belief, the gift that my son gave me in that time was I could not have got those realizations and those insights in any other way. It was truly a soul gift, because where I was at when you interrupted me was I was going back into the workplace.
I love how you just called me out. I love how you called me out on my own show once you interrupted me, Matt. You're so rude. Americans are just Americans are just rude. We are. Sometimes Americans are just rude.
Well, thank you for saying that, because now I don't need to. But anyway.
Of course.
Anyway, so going back into the workplace, I had to get to my client's corner office, right? And walking across this open plan cubicle spaced office was like, and I'm not joking when I say this, it sounds very cliched, but it was like walking into the living dead. Right. And I'm walking and I can feel the energy and the life energy draining out of me. And in my head, I went into a fight or flight response, like, I just need to get out of here right now. And it was this. And then I had this, it was followed up by this notion of, has it always been like this in corporate life? And I've just never realized.
Right.
And then I sit down with my client and we do the coaching, and what I hadn't and then I come away, and it was about 5 days later, his wife called me up, right? Now, I've never had anybody's wife call me up before. His wife called me up and actually said to me, thank you for giving me my husband back.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, what? And I'm not joking. I was like, what? And I had to unpack what I was doing differently. And where I got to was, it's this idea of healing and spirituality and energy, all this stuff I was doing in my private life, combine that and integrate it with leadership and business and strategy, but with the knowledge that we are all interconnected. And we start to get a very different perspective on leadership and business and the purpose of business and what the strategy's for, and the fact that business is just human. It's humans collected together trying to create something more than an individual can on their own. But in modern business, we forget that. We think it's processes and systems, and we re-engineer those processes, and we do culture and all these things. Well, really, that for me was a big turning point. That's when I knew I had to bring these two worlds together, of everything I'd learned from, because I'm a shiatsu trained practitioner and all this stuff in energy healing and Chinese medicine and the energy flow, and bring that into organizational life, so we can harness the energy of the organization, so we can be intentional and conscious in our leadership, so we can shift to higher ground and really kind of do well and do good at the same time. And so that was the genesis of all that.
And thank you, because I'm gonna go into each of those, or some of those areas. So I want to come back to the beginning of this section before you were so rudely interrupted. I don't even know who that guy is. And say, you made a very important point that I've heard several times on the show. I know this is true in my own life. And I know that the last 3 years have been very transformative for me, and I am only now waking up to what those transformations are allowing me to do. But I will also say that you mentioned that, that which was the most physically devastating, probably mentally and spiritually devastating to you, was your greatest gift, I think that's what you called it, your greatest gift. And I too feel that way, that the lowest spots in my life, the times where I was at the lowest points, or the darkest points, or the points of the most negative stuff happening to me in my own perception. When I look back, when I get enough space, that there is space to look back on those, I see that they drive me to do something better with my life, or better for other people. Had I not had those lows, I would never have had the perspective to even want to do something with that. And I think too often in life, we're quick to numb, we're quick to detach from those feelings, we're quick to run. I mean, I think a lot of my life, and I only have these two lenses that I look through, but a lot of my life was spent, in fear of or running from fear, instead of, I've spent some time in India, and I've done my own spiritual journey. And there was some monks in India that I studied with that said, what do you do if the tiger's chasing you? Right. And I was like, what do you mean? What do you do if the tiger? And they said, you let the tiger eat you. Right. You just turn and let the tiger eat you, because then there's no longer you. Right. And it's just the being present. Right. And I'm like, because then your fear is gone. Right. And so, and so I just really, most of our guests that come on the show that I like the most, and I like and I love you the most, Jayne. I'm just going to put you in that category. I'm going to put you up in the top.
Thank you.
No, forever and a day. But because it's so the hero's journey, if you want to call it, it's so interwoven. Your story is a representation of, it's in all of us. We have the ability and the capacity, and I just didn't want to miss this point. We have the ability and the capacity to be the heroes in our own journey if we just have that perspective. Right. Yeah. And you were able to, in that moment of the sun shining through that hospital window, you were able to, even in that space of not wanting to be physically here, you were able to have that perspective of that you were going to be the hero for somebody bigger, for your family, for your kids. Right. Yeah. And I think, so that's just so important, that I think so often in the hero's journey, we get lost in the dark night of the soul or the low point, and we think that that's going to be forever. And I'm here to tell myself and anybody listening that that doesn't last forever. And if nothing else, don't take my word for it. Take Jayne's word for it, because she's a lot smarter than I am. And she's got some really, really good awareness. And so I just didn't, you've got so many golden nuggets. I just don't want to run over these golden nuggets and lose them. That's why I'm spending so much time to go into that, because it's such, and if you don't know what the hero's journey is, Google it. There's tons of videos on the heroes. Joseph Campbell, I think you're right. Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey. And so go out there and if nothing else, it may give you, I'm not saying it'll make your life easier. It may just give you perspective. Your life didn't get easier once the sun hit your legs. Your life was still hard for a while. I would, and still to some degree is physically, is what you said. There's still things. There is still things. Yeah. But you're talking to you, your energy and the way, you present yourself or the way you are, you would never know that, as to your point. And the thing that changed really is your and you can tell me what changed, but from the outside view, it was your perspective and your view of the thing and your purpose and meaning in life. Is that accurate to say?
Absolutely. Yeah, because it was the beginning. That light on the window was the beginning of me finding what I think of as a true purpose, or I even think of it now as a soul's calling. Like I'm being called, I'm being invited into a different space, a different energy. And when you're talking about the hero's journey, Matt, I think about the fact that, it's very easy to think of my entire life as a hero's journey, but there's also multiple hero's journeys that we take. So this opportunity that we have as humans to completely reinvent ourselves, right? Sometimes it takes a trauma to do that, but it doesn't have to, because sometimes I get off stage after speaking and people will come up to me and say, I haven't had a life-changing trauma like that. Does that mean I can never change? No, because we are intentional and conscious enough to just raise our awareness, create a commitment and an intention. And you can do this. You don't need something to take you to your knees before you have this level of shift and change. But you do need a commitment to a purpose that's bigger than you, which is what you're talking about here. Absolutely so important.
Yes. And yes, because my first moment of that shift for me was not a traumatic experience. It was literally sitting in front of a computer screen in the same office I'm shooting this podcast 20 some years ago, or 20 years ago, roughly. And it was just the realization, and I've made it prettier since then. I've done the grays because they're cool, but it was the realization that I was basically, my realization was I'm sitting in a computer, I'm tapping away. And I was like, and I just had this visual perspective of a monkey sitting on my desk watching me. And I'm spending 4 or 5 hours pecking away at this piece of plastic, looking at this piece of plastic, and I'm not doing anything. And I was like, if a monkey was watching me do this, the monkey would think that is an insane creature. It just sits here all day and pecks on that little plastic board, and it just stares at that plastic screen. And I went, if this is life, then if this is life, then this isn't what I signed up for. Right. And it took and that was my toe into the water. I was definitely not in the deep end. That was just kind of the first, I need to do something to figure out what life is, so it wasn't a heart attack. It wasn't a car accident. Now this last, to your point of the cycles, this last go around with the closure of the world and then the reopen of the world, that was a son of a bitch. I'll be honest. I'm going to cuss on my own show. That was not the toe in the little end of the pool. That was like, grab this kettlebell, this 50-pound kettlebell, and jump into the 30-foot water and see how long you can breathe under the water. That was more of the experience. But thank gosh, it hasn't manifested physically as much. It was more of a mental, spiritual thing, which I am so thankful for. So how are you bridging, and feel free to backtrack if we need to, but how are you bridging? Because this is a piece that I think is so prevalent, is becoming more and more prevalent now in business, and especially with this millennial generation and the generation behind them. They want to make money, and they have dreams, and they have goals, and they have aspirations, but they want to do it for a purpose. And so first, you're so fun. Sorry, I'm rambling on, but you just got me all excited. So Jayne, what you talked about, your purpose. Now, what is your purpose, if you don't mind me just calling that out?
No. So my purpose is to help raise the consciousness of humanity. Doesn't that sound amazing and big? But actually, what that means is just one conversation at a time.
Exactly. Yes.
Right?
Which is happening. That's why I'm getting so fired up. And that's why in the beginning I said, well, we could go with this podcast for a long time, because I feel that's your intention, but I feel it's like I'm getting smarter just talking to you. And so how are you, because now you're full blown, I told you it'd be fun, right? But
you did.
And I didn't lie, did I? I don't lie.
No, this is great.
How are you? Well, because I'm so excited about, because it's something that I've been working on, something I've been thinking about for months and months and months and months and months, is how do I blend my own purpose, knowing what I know and experiencing what I experience on this, I would call spiritual side, or interpersonal spiritual side, with the tactics of sales and marketing and HR and accounting, and which I love, some of those things. I don't love all of them, but I love, some of the numbers and the system. I love business, right? And I love business owners. I love business people, because I am one, but it's deeper than that. I think you said this in the show, that when you're in business, especially when you're in business for yourself or you're a small business owner, it is the greatest catalyst for personal growth, and I believe spiritual growth. Has that been your experience?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I do believe that business is the biggest lever for transformation and change we have. And when I say that, I mean it at an individual level. I mean it at an organizational level, at a country level, but also at a global level.
Yes,
because it kind of transcends all of those different levels. And business is one of those. It's like a marriage, isn't it? Like it's like a partnership in that way. It challenges us. It's the best of times and the worst of times. But if we're awake and aware, it really does develop us. And I believe now it develops us at a soul level. So let me say something very provocative, which is that I believe modern business has become a waste ground of the soul. Right? So what do I mean by that? What I mean is it's very interesting going into organizations as an external person, because just in the reception area, I can get a really good sense of the culture of the organization, right? Just by watching people wandering through the reception area, you get a really good sense. Now, here's what this is, right? Most of us don't talk about the fact that in life and in business, the really important things that are driving the show are actually invisible. They're like the subtle energies underneath everything. If we think of things that matter most to us, like love and connection and relationship, you can't see that, you can't touch it and feel it. Just like in business, culture,
culture,
and leadership, leadership, you can't see. You can see a leader, but you can't see the leadership throughout the organization. So what we don't realize is that we're all trying to shape the future. That's also an invisible thing. We're trying to shape a better future for ourselves individually and, when we come together collectively in organizational life. But what we've somehow lost, or what we've kind of put on a pedestal, is this scientific mindset, this rational, logical, evidence-based way of doing things that is in the pursuit of profit at any cost. And it's like we've forgotten. So that polarity of like, my business school education that's over there.
Right.
And then over here, like you were describing, is the spiritual path, the journey, kind of the sense of like how we co-create reality and create our own lives, and all of this that we can get from ancient texts and scriptures, and energy healing and spirituality and all these other kind of modalities. But when we bring these two together into something that one of my spiritual teachers would often think of as the middle way, like instead of meditation or action, we have contemplation in the middle. Well, that's kind of how I see my work now, is how can we integrate the business and the technology and the logical, rational, scientific mindset over there with the invisible, which is more of the kind of the old ways of doing things, the interconnectivity, the unity of life, the purpose-driven ways of living and being in the world. And also I've always taught leadership from the inside out. So it's not just about what you do. Like, it's that cliche that we all talk about all the time now, but back in the 90s we didn't, which is this idea of who are you being and who are you becoming? Because if you show up to your organizational life or your leadership with an unhealed story, or, you really need healing as the very first step of change. And that can be at all levels of system again. So when I look at my work, I realize that, actually we don't have the language for where we're headed. And I saw a stat actually, Matt, that by next year, 75% of the US workforce will be made up of millennials. Right. And the millennials 75%? Are really 75%. That is huge.
That is.
And so this idea of purpose, and post, lockdown, everybody's searching for more meaning. Like it's like we've had the time out now. Like it's almost like the world just went, okay, go and have a timeout and think about what you're really doing here. And is it what you want to be doing? Right. And so now we're like questioning everything. We're looking for more meaning. Customers, clients are looking for more meaning. So it's being driven through the marketplace. I mean, who the hell wants to work with an organization that's not awake and aware these days?
Right. Exactly.
Right? So we are getting winners and losers starting to show in the marketplace now, because this is being demand led, and every consumer has a voice, which means that it's changing the game. The game we thought we were playing pre-pandemic is not the game we're playing in business today. And thank God. I mean, thank God, because it's like a massive awakening now. And now everybody's scrambling to try and get the top talent, because we've got a skills shortage coming up. We've got all of these things. We've got recession that everybody's talking about, and and they'll probably create it through the media because they keep talking about it. But the way that our lives are shaped today, it's time that we actually took a pause, each of us individually, and said, it's a great quote from Gandalf in Lord of the Rings. What am I going to do with the time that I've been given? And not only what can I do for myself and the people that I love that are close to me, but what does the world need from me now? Because if I know anything, the world needs change makers. It needs us right now. It needs us to have a growing awareness of the interconnectivity of life, so we can live in resonance with ourselves and all living things. It's time we expanded our horizons for change and started to realize that the possibilities are endless. They're amazing. And we don't have to just keep doing what we've always done. We can reinvent and innovate and be creative and really start to shape a future that will be a better future for all, not just for the me and the I, me, mine, but for all of us. Because isn't it time that we did that?
I love you. I'm just going to say it. I love you. And I'm not just saying that because I love you. I actually love you. Everything you said was just a mic drop. They talk about that, and I'm saying it right now. Jayne just did a mic drop. for humanity, not just for me, not just for you, the listeners, or she just did a mic drop for humanity. 100,000%. You're speaking my language. You're definitely, I think everything you're saying, you said a lot more eloquently than I've been able to phrase. That's why I was just at some point, I just got super quiet because I was like, this is really good stuff right here. This is the magic, right? And I was actually twice, I thought, it's too bad that the people born on foreign soil can't run for presidential office. That's what I was thinking. I was like, Jayne Warrilow for president. That's what I was we'll form our own party, damn it. We'll just do it. It'll be 70, right? It'll be the millennial party. Right. And the rest of us will just get the benefit of it, but it'll be the millennial party and 75% voter base. We're going to have this thing. But see, I told you it would be fun. That is just what you just said was amazing. It was just an amazing, I don't even know what to call it, declaration or call out, or it was just truly amazing. And I so appreciate the passion and the, passion and clarity with which you said it. I know that wasn't rehearsed. That's not something that you rehearsed before the show. I was like, okay, Jayne, here's the lines, right? We didn't feed those to you on a teleprompter. So how do we, I'm almost scared of the answer. How do we do more of what you just said? How do we lean in? How do we do? Because that is this being, that's the being. How do you see us doing this more? How this connecting the purpose, connecting the passion, connecting the doing good, doing the greater good. How do you see that working?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I could answer that in so many different perspectives, but I'm going to start with what I think Michael Jackson said it a long time ago with the man in the mirror.
Oh, here we go.
But it really starts there because, I think one of the threads that runs through my work is this idea of resonance. Right. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, if you look that up online, they're just going to show you MRI, like magnetic resonance imaging stuff. But what I really mean about resonance is the frequency at which you're living your life. And there are different energetic frequencies that we all live our life at. And in my models and my maps of the world, I've now come to rest with 9 different levels. But I'll just talk, there are 3 groups of 3.
Nine levels of resonance. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Energetic, right? So 9 levels of energy. You can think of them through the easy way to get level 1 to 7 is through the chakras as well, because that's integrated into it. Some of Ken Wilber's work on integral is also integrated in leadership. There. Some of this spiral dynamics is also. I was just,
oh my gosh, this is why I love you, because I didn't want to say spiral dynamics because I didn't want to take away from your 9, because I was like, this is spiral dynamics, and so I was going through, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to mess with your 9. I was like, I'm going to leave Jayne's 9 alone and not compare it to spiral dynamics. But yes, you're totally.
But there's elements of all of these things. So it's very research based and it's all kind of linked in. But what I want you to know is, because you don't need to understand all the levels.
Is it possible that maybe I was adopted? That's what I'm thinking in my head. Maybe you and I are brother and sister and somehow I was adopted. I'm going to call my mom right after the show and I'm going to say, where was I actually born? Was I born in England? Because I'm pretty sure I just met my sister today. So, okay, I'm sorry. Back to we need to be serious. This is about business. So the 9 levels.
So let me explain this to you, because when you get this, it really changes everything, right? And because here's what it is, the 9 levels. So people live at 9 different frequencies. And what you have to realize is that, so they go, and I'll just spread them out a little bit in an easy way instead of talking about 9. So physical, some of the levels lead with physical energy, some with emotional energy, some with cognitive and intellectual energy, some with more spiritual and unified kind of energy. But every single level has its own worldview. Now, what does that mean? It has its own belief system, its own languaging, its own way that it deals with the physical world, with emotions, what it believes, how it behaves, everything that it does. Now, we've got these 9 levels. So in organizational life, you have all of them. They're all there in a team or whatever. They're all there. So part of leadership is understanding where am I? Like, what am I aware of? What level of resonance? And when I talk about resonance, I'm talking about what am I aware of right now? And am I aware of just the external world? Because a lot of leaders, they think that, you know, organizational growth is out here. It's not out here. It starts in here. Inside, because what you believe or don't believe determines what you will and won't do. So therefore, everything begins with belief. So what am I aware of? And then how aligned am I in my, so very simply, we could just go with my head, my heart, and my gut. You know, how aligned am I in what I'm saying? And am I doing what I say I will do when I will say I will do it? All those kind of things. Is my resonance intact in the alignment? Now we go to the external world, and in the attunement, am I able to attune to the people and the circumstances and situations and the relationships that I'm in? Am I able to meet people where they are? Can I read their energy and see what they need from me so that I can meet them where they are? And then the final step is integration. But here's the key thing I want listeners to understand is these are 9 different ways of being in the world. Right. And one of the biggest issues I think we have in and outside of organizational life is how we deal with difference. And to me, this is the key to everything for the future. If we continue to conflict with difference, whatever that is, right, you know, then we are just kind of keeping ourselves in our limited vibration, when what we really need to understand is full spectrum resonance. How can we move around the levels according to the situations and the relationships that we're in? How can we meet people where we are while still maintaining our own sense of kind of radical authenticity? How can I be me and yet still be in relationship with you? Right. So to me, this is the key to everything, because if I take somebody from like the top level and somebody from the bottom level, they can't communicate together because they have very different perspectives. But if we can start to understand and gain an understanding of all these different levels of resonance, and because you could also see them as levels of consciousness, then what that means is, what that means now is we have a common understanding. We have a common language in which I can understand this difference. And now we can work together to create something bigger and better and more intentional than we would have done if we were just on our own, like little islands, thinking that this life is just individual and I'm all on my own like a lone wolf trying to survive it. Right. So for me, this is the bridge. It's about understanding. It's about compassion through the heart, because the energy level in the middle that connects, I call it the bridging energy level. It's actually the energy of the heart, chakra level 4. So we take those survival energies. Like, I can't talk to people that are in survival mode, just trying to put food on the table to feed their kids about, you know, the unified, interconnected universe. They're just trying to put food on the table. Right. So
and we got to get that taken care of first.
The resonance really comes in. And to me, this is the true integration of everything I know about business and strategy and organizational development and growth and business and life, right the way through to the kind of the healing, the spirituality, everything I've learned from the Vedas to Chinese medicine, right the way through, bringing these together and taking the best of everything so that we can get truly intentional about the way I live my life and how my life fits into the whole. Because we're writing history right now. It's really easy to forget that, but what they're going to look back on in 100 years, because these are soul defining times we're living through. And, you know, a lot of the people that I work with, one of the questions is, are you going to be part of the solution? Are you going to be part of the problem?
You're killing me.
Your choice. What do you want to do, Matt? Come on, Matt. What are you going to be?
I am. Yes. Okay. Here we go. No, I am going to be the best servant of God that I can possibly be. That is where I'm at in my space and time right now. I focus on that a lot, and I focus on that connection daily. But then I also make sure I focus on it as an experience of life, not just a cognitive. Since you called me out, I called you out. This is fair.
Yeah.
But each and every day, I just focus as much as I can on being the vessel with which grace, I call it God, but which grace flows through, so that I can impact so I can have an impact. I guess, with people that I'm with, right? That's where
I love that.
Yeah, that's
Can I
where
speak to something there? Because here's something I know about you now.
Uh-oh, here we go. Here we go. The big reveal that I don't even know is coming. Yes, please.
Are you ready for this?
Yes, I am ready.
So what it means to me is you are truly a resonant leader. Why? Because you're not just puffing your chest up in command and control and trying to give authority over people. You understand power. And this is one of the places where I spend a lot of my time with clients, is helping them understand the receptive nature of leadership. What does it mean to surrender, to go with the flow, to follow the charge of life where it wants to take you, to allow the work to move through you, to truly feel and listen to the whispers of your soul so that you feel fulfilled because you're becoming fully expressed in the work and the life that you're leading. Now, I know that about you from you just describing what you just said, because, you know, that is the most important thing, I think, of our time now, is to realize that the leadership we knew before is of another era.
Right.
Now we know differently. What will we do differently now that we know? That's the big question. What will we do?
Yeah, totally. And that is the question I've been asking myself for 2.5, 3 years, and still I'm getting closer and closer each day with what am I to do with that, or what am I going to choose to do with that which I know to be true. And as the truth continues to unfold and express itself, right? Every day is a new truth. There's not, you know, each day I'm like, oh yeah. In fact, I was having a text conversation with a friend of mine last night, and I was kind of joking, like I've been doing with you. I was kind of joking, but then all of a sudden, some really profound stuff was coming through that I was starting to text them, and it just got deeper. And at one point I just found that I was just in tears as I was texting this to the person, because all of a sudden there was the awareness that even though I was getting to experience the grace and the joy of the message that was coming through that I was texting, that this message was meant for them to go deeper within themselves in a way to express their art. They're an artist, to express their art more fully, so that others may experience the grace that they're experiencing. It was like, I'm not asking you to do this thing to just do it. It's because the world needs this, right? This isn't for you. This isn't for you. You're just the vessel. And I'm not making less than of that. It's like, you're called to do this because it's going to help others, versus I want to look at this pretty painting type thing, right? And so in the beginning I was joking, and then all of a sudden I was caught. It was just like, okay. And then it's always funny how the joke's on you, right? It's all, for me anyway. So I have this sarcastic, typically post-COVID, I had a very sarcastic sense of humor, but now it's always funny because that's how grace uses me, because in the end it was like, oh, I'm just an idiot. Right. And I'm not being right. I'm not being down on myself. It's like, I started to laugh because I'm like, you're very good at using me for stuff like this. And I enjoy it, but it's always like at the end of it, it's like, but the joke's still on me. Right. I mean, it's like the punchline is, you're still an idiot, Matt. But anyway, but not in an intelligence way, more just in a, you're eventually going to figure out that, I am using you for good, but you're just not always aware of it. You dropped some big things in this episode. You dropped full spectrum resonance. I wrote that down. You like drop these. When I say drop, you're like exploding into consciousness, full spectrum resonance. I was like, that's a cool term. You could just write a book called Full Spectrum Resonance, or right after that, soul defining time. This is a soul defining time. I'm like, boom. Boom, there's like bombs going off in here. It's like we're in some type of like awareness warfare, and you're dropping like nuclear bombs. I was like, sometimes we go on the show, we're throwing like little darts, maybe some grenades. You're like nuking entire cities. You're just like, whoosh, whoosh. You're like, whoa, we've just gone. So if you're listening to this and you feel hungover, you have a headache, you need to lay down for a couple of days, please know that it's Jayne's fault, not mine. I am not the one dropping nuclear weapons into our conversation. That is Jayne, right? So email her. I don't want to hear about your headache, right? Yes. Wow. This is just I don't think I've had this much fun or this much depth in I always have fun on the show, but Byron Katie, do you know who Byron Katie is?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay. So I had Byron Katie on the show first year I was doing this show. And she was just like, it was just so beautiful to be she's just so in the moment, every moment, right? She's never not in the moment. She's just always present.
Right.
And it's just amazing being in her presence. And I would say that while that was amazing, this has been amazing in a whole other way, because it connects so many of the dots in my own life. And I'm sure for our listeners, so many of the dots in their lives, because you're just speaking the truth of the reality of where we are as a society, or especially for people that are open to the message, right? You're speaking to the people who are open to the message, but there's just so many of us who are like, what's my purpose in life? What am I supposed to be doing? What are the gifts that I have that I don't even know maybe that I have them? What are these, what tools do I have in my kit that I've had, but I've used them so much I don't even realize that other people could, so yeah, it's just amazing. You're just amazing, Jayne. I am so glad that you made that. I'm so thankful for your kids, right? I am so thankful for your kids that you chose to stick around to have this conversation with me 20 some odd years later. So it's like, what a blessing that you are to definitely to me personally, but then just the world. Wow. You're amazing. Sorry. I'm not meaning to, I'm not meaning to, we never met before today. To be clear, we've never talked to each other. I don't know. Literally, usually, the way our system works, I don't even know who's coming onto the show until the day of, usually, because I just want to be fresh and clear with whoever the guest is coming on. And so I just want to say that this wasn't pre-planned. We didn't go, wow, you know what? There's some interesting things to talk about. Nope, you just came on the show and like nuked everything and gave us clarity. And now we have these new like little seeds of growth that will grow up and make this into a beautiful forest. So I appreciate the trimming of the tree, the trimming of the vine, so to speak. I don't even know how to end the show. I know we're at the top of the hour. I promised you that we would get out. I also promised you we would probably run long, but how do we even get out of this show? I just want to like save the rest of the world. It's like, okay, you've saved part of the world. How do we save all of the world? You have so I'll do tactical stuff now. You have a podcast, which I'm going to have to start listening to now. Do you still work with clients? I mean, kind of how do people become disciples of Jayne is really what I want to ask. Because do you have like a discipleship program, or are you a guru or some kind? Is there like, I've been in ashrams. I'm Christian by beating, but meaning that I've come to it on my knees, and I appreciate my Christian spirit now, which I didn't always, but but I've sat with some Indian gurus, and I've been in some woo-woo deals and done some fun stuff. So how do you become a disciple of Jayne? Where do people go?
Well, definitely come and listen to my podcast. The Sacred Changemakers podcast is where I platform conversations that don't usually get platformed, put it that way. People that are doing well and doing good in the world, and real change makers that are interested in shaping a better future for us all. So that's the Sacred Changemaker podcast. Come to the website, sacredchangemakers.com. I do have an inner circle. It is invitation only, but it's for people doing this work, because it's difficult work to do. And so it's a supportive spiritual community, but we're cross-cultural. So we're sharing the best practices from Europe right the way through to America, and and everywhere in between. So we are having those conversations and doing that work. If you're a coach, come to Coaches Business School. I teach coaches how to build conscious businesses, because I truly believe coaches are another thing that can really help us. I think the world needs coaching right now, and quite honestly, I'm sure the coaches will forgive me for saying this, they're usually rubbish at doing business, so because they don't like the internet marketing way of doing it. So come and learn how to do it in a conscious way. That's another thing. And then if you're a leader in an organization, my private client practice, I still work with leaders and teams and organizations, really helping leaders step into the power of their leadership, and do it through resonance, which is what you've heard me talk about. So anything and everything in those places. So So yeah, that's me. But really, I think what I want, can I just say this? Because I want the listeners to know.
Yes, but before you do though, because I'm going to end with that mic drop, because I know it's going to be big and I want to be able to close with it, right? So don't ruin this for me. Okay. So I'm just kidding on that last part. I want to be clear so that people know how to connect with you. So tell me the name of the podcast again, so I make sure we get that clear.
Sacred Changemakers.
Changemakers podcast. And then is it sacredchangemakers.com, .org, .co, okay. So it's which one? Okay. So it's sacredchangemakers.com. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I had those for the show, because I don't want people to go, well, thank you. I just, and I don't know what the show should get for all the disciples that you will sign up from this, but I am sure that you will. It's an energy exchange of some kind. All right. So now I'm going to let you just finish us off, Jayne. How do you want to finish us off? What do you want to make sure that we know or understand?
I think what I want people to know and understand is that we're all on a journey here, and it's not about me. It's about you and the decisions that you make with your life and the time that you've been given. And just to give you like a very succinct way of describing my path through business, I started off with a career, then I had a business, my own business, then I had a purpose-driven business. Now I have a calling, and that's changed everything. So, create some space in your life, go out into nature, reconnect to nature. The indigenous peoples talk about going and standing among the tall ones, which is just the trees. Let the world speak to you and ask yourself the questions, because I do believe, and it's probably because I'm biased as a coach, but the questions that we ask ourselves are what truly shape our lives. So think about what the questions are that you're asking yourself. And it could be, what do I need to do? It could be in the I, me, mine section. And I don't want to negate that, because in the systems of life that we live within today, that is very important, right? So yes, you need to live a good life, a meaningful life, one that fulfills you. But the other side of that is you're a part of humanity. You're here today with a purpose, right? You wouldn't be alive on the planet if you didn't have some part to play. What is that? That's a question for you to answer yourself in your own way. And don't think that changing the world has to be big. It doesn't. It's just one person, one conversation at a time. But really ask yourself, what does the world need from you now? Because that question, it may be different every time you ask it, what bubbles up, but don't just let your head answer. Let it come from the whispers of your soul. Reconnect to your soul. Let it have expression in your life, because that will change the meaning of everything that you do. And follow that energetic life charge, because when you choose life, life chooses you back.
Beautiful. And I'll just leave that mic drop right there. Jayne, I really have been honored and feel so grateful to have had this conversation with you today. You are a delight, and thank you for allowing me to play and use humor. But I do want you to know from the bottom of my heart, I really do appreciate what you did today for me and for those who are listening. It was amazing. It was amazing on so many different levels. And so I just want to thank you for what you've done and the things that you've traversed to get here, and just the authenticity and the grace with which you do it. So thank you so much for coming on this show. And you have an open format to come on this show anytime you want, because it was, I'm serious. You could come, literally we could do this every week. But I really appreciate you think I'm kidding. I can't help myself. I really do appreciate the work you're doing, and I personally want to stay connected with you because you are such an inspiration. Your voice is my voice. Like it's the whispers that I've heard in my own head. It's the whispers I've felt in my own heart. And so for me, you're helping give voice to something that I was already feeling, but you just do such a good job of giving it words and eloquence to it. In fact, as you were closing out this, I'm like, I want to, send this to my wife. I've got a good friend. I'm just going to download the raw footage and just send it right to them and say, you've got to listen to this. This is just truly amazing. And I'm not just saying, if you listen to my show, I don't say these things often or ever, but I really am just humbled and grateful all at once.
Thank you, Matt. It truly was my pleasure. You're an amazing interview, and I love your energy. I feel you, my friend. I don't just hear you. And that's what resonance is. So thank you.
Yes. Well, I will be reaching out to you myself, but then certainly you think I'm not kidding. You're like, you don't know what you've just done for yourself. You'll be like, oh my gosh, it's like a little stray dog. He just won't go away. I fed him a little bit of scraps from the table, and now he just won't go away. It's like, Matt, no, I have like other things I need to do. I'm like, no. Gave me that little bit of bacon from the table, and now I'm going to come back for scraps. But I will take your scraps. So thank you so much for doing this today. And like I said, I'm a big fan because of what you're doing and who you are. So thank you so much.
Thanks.
Have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thank you. I will do.
Thank you for being a part of the BriteVibe podcast. For more information, go to britevibe.com. That's BRITE vibe, VIBE.com. Thank you for listening.